All right, everybody, welcome in. It's the Locked On Eagles podcast, and it's the first time, ladies and gentlemen, who are watching on the video that we are going live on StreamYard. Me and Gino are going to be doing this now, I think, on the weekly, Gino. So you guys can always find our podcast on any podcast platform, obviously. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey, radio.com is now Odyssey. In case, for those of you that don't know that, Stitcher, Spotify, you name it, we are available on all platforms, and now we are available on StreamYard as well. And Gino, today's Mock Draft Monday, and what we've only got today and next Monday, and then the NFL draft starts. So we've only got a couple more of these.
Yeah, 3. I looked at it today, three. And then 2 more Mondays, but we're about less than 3 weeks till actually being there. So we're right there, man. And you just keep hearing more and more little breadcrumbs of what's going on. And I saw one tweet today that I knew you would appreciate, that a couple NFL GMs are saying that Mac Jones to the San Fran just doesn't smell right. And we've been saying that, like, the one player that there's no smoke around for San Fran has been Trey Lance. And I just have this weird gut feeling that Trey is the guy for them.
Unfortunately, though, dude, I think we want Mac Jones to go with that third pick because we want all 5 for the Eagles to get, again,
I still think all of them are going to go, honestly.
Yeah.
I really do.
But my thing is, I think Mac Jones's best chance of going in the top 10, ironically enough, is with that third pick to the 49ers. And if the Eagles want one of J.C. Horn, Patrick Surtain, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, those 4 receivers and corners that we've talked to death on this podcast, we want one of those guys to fall to 12. The best chance, I mean, there's other ways it could happen, right? Rashawn Slater and Penei Sewell go. If you get a Kwity Paye in there, a defensive lineman like a Jalen Phillips, or a linebacker like Micah Parsons, it could do the job as well. But I think the best chance is you get those 4 quarterbacks that we know are going to go in the top 10, right? Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance. But if we can get Mac Jones in there as well, that's going to be pretty big for the Eagles for sure. And we're going to find out. Again, we've got just 3 more weeks or less than it. Thursday, April 29th is the start of the NFL draft.
Yeah, I don't like that they pushed it back like a couple days. What was that, like 7-8 years ago? That really made me angry. Like, it's already so much anticipation as it is, and we're sitting here having to wait even longer. But the thing with the Mac Jones pick, I don't believe that if he doesn't get picked by San Fran, it's a surefire he's not going to be taken in the top 10.
Where do you think he goes out in the top 10?
I think New England has a chance to trade up into the top 10 to get him. I think that would be a team that, I mean, Saban and Belichick are best friends. He has all the inside information on Mac Jones. If there's one team that fits his skill set too, and if Trey Lance is gone, I could see that happen. I saw one mock draft today that had them trading up to 4, that being New England, to take Trey Lance, which would be crazy. I wouldn't even want to see that in Bill Belichick's system. It would just be unfair how much he could rain it out there, but still needs playmakers. But we want Mac Jones and every other quarterback. We want somebody to be crazy in love with Davis Mills, which apparently a team is going to trade into the first round at the end of the first round to get him, according to reports. But who knows with quarterbacks? I do believe 5 will be taken before Philadelphia selects. So we got to hope that is the case. And we have to hope a team likes Rashawn Slater more than Penei Sewell, because if that happens, Rashawn Slater's taken, Penei Sewell continues to drop. If a team wants to come up and take Penei Sewell, continue to let those players drop down the board. And being at 12, if a guy like Kyle Pitts somehow slips to 8 or 9, you're making that call. Like, you're on the phone figuring out what that takes. A 4th plus, maybe a 3. You're doing that all day if that's the case. And I think that's a plausible situation that the Eagles could be in, but most likely I think comes down to what you talked about on NFL Today, with it being one of those 4 guys that we've talked at nauseum about.
100%, man. And that's the thing, though. I mean, we think we know. Everybody thinks they have an idea of how the top 5 is going to go, the top 10. And then, a couple years ago, the Raiders take Cleveland Farrell. And so it's the NFL. It's very unpredictable for sure in the NFL draft, even in the first round. But today, on Mock Draft Monday, something that we haven't done, Gino. So we like to spice it up. Normally on Mock Draft Monday, we do a 7-round Eagles mock draft, right? But the last couple of weeks, we've been doing some different stuff, right? The listeners made the first 4 picks for us a couple of weeks ago. Then we did mock versus mock, where we both did a 7-round mock draft and saw which one the listeners liked better. And then this week, actually, what we're going to do is a predictive first-round mock draft. So we're actually going to draft for all 32 teams including the Eagles at least at 12. We'll see if maybe a trade up happens, maybe a trade down. That could be on the docket in Mock Draft Monday today. But that's what we're going to do, is a predictive mock draft where, so I'm going to have pick 1, you have 2, I have 3. We're going to go back and forth and see exactly, because again, you have no idea. Nobody really knows how the board's going to fall. Every year there's crazy picks. There's some that you expect, and there's others you're just like, how did that happen? Each time we've done a live draft show together the past couple of years, there's been some shouting on the show, just of pure excitement and just pure shock, because again, like Dexter Lawrence with the New York Giants. I mean, we laugh at that one, and there's been a lot of different picks. That was the 2019 draft, was pretty crazy, and the Eagles moved up for an offensive lineman. I didn't really predict that, but today we are going to give our best shot at predicting these top 32, man. So are you ready to go? I got pick 1, but you will have the Eagles pick at 12.
Yeah, it should be fun hearing what our listeners have to say about the pick, especially if it does end up being a quarterback that's there. I'm just kidding. I don't think one of these guys goes to 12.
Yeah, right. I mean, look, again, this is predictive. So if one of the quarterbacks were there, I would be all over that. But again, it's not going to happen with the Eagles. So I don't really even have to say much to start here with the first overall pick with the Jaguars. This is going to be Trevor Lawrence. Gino, I think I don't think it's like by far the best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck, but I think when it comes to the closest thing to a sure thing, Lawrence sure does feel like that.
Yeah, I mean, this has been set in stone for months. Apparently, he already has the Jaguars' offensive playbook and is like learning the offensive plays. However, that's legal. I don't know. It's the NFL, so he apparently is already in with the Jaguars. They probably already have his jersey in the pro shop. I would not be shocked if that happened. It's an easy pick, number 1, and number 2 probably will be just as easy to take as well.
So you have the pick, man. Unfortunately,
Zach Wilson
might have been the quarterback the Eagles wanted, but they didn't want to get up to 3 because, look, the Eagles wanted to move to pick 3 at one point, but it was only for Zach Wilson. They did not see Justin Fields or Trey Lance as worth it, but this is the reason they didn't move up, man, because the Jets are going to take him, and we know that now that Sam Darnold is a Carolina Panther.
Yeah, I'm sure Joe Douglas gave Howie a little heads up about that whole pick and kind of told him, yeah, we're taking the guy that you want. So if you want to move out of there, now's the time.
All right, so this is kind of when the draft really starts, right? We know the first 2 picks. It's going to be Trevor Lawrence. It's going to be Zach Wilson.
Right.
I want this to be Mac Jones, not for the 49ers. I think it's crazy if they do it for all the reasons we've said on the podcast before, but for the Eagles, because again, I think there's a better chance that if Jones goes here, Lance and Fields are still going to go in the top 10, and that pushes some good prospects down the board for the Eagles at 12. However, I refuse to believe that Mac Jones is actually the pick here. I do not think you make this lateral move from Jimmy Garoppolo to Mac Jones, giving up a ton of draft ammunition, multiple first-round picks for a quarterback that's like a joystick, right? A Jared Goff type player that you can win with. But I mean, the slogan we always use here when it comes to quarterbacks, win with versus win because of. You give up this kind of ammunition to get from 12 to 3 to go get a guy that can elevate you regardless of your roster. And to me, that is so clearly Justin Fields or Trey Lance compared to Mac Jones. And between these two, look, I think Trey Lance is the highest upside of any quarterback in this draft outside of Trevor Lawrence. But I do think Fields has almost equal upside, and I just think he's a sure thing, right? He's been proving it for years now on the highest collegiate level. He's coming off one of the best games I've ever seen a college quarterback have with those 6 touchdowns against Clemson. You look at the speed, you look at the arm power. I think with Kyle Shanahan's offense, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, this has got to be the move. And I think Justin Fields will be the pick at 3 eventually when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I really do. When I look at it, the Mac Jones thing just doesn't make much sense to me.
None.
And when you look at scouting, he's a 1-year guy. He literally played for 1 season. That's always that's an X. That's a negative thing when you're looking at it. The knock on Trey Lance is he's only had less than 20 starts. Right. But the thing is, he would have been the starter for a full season. You have to contextualize that.
Sure.
But Justin Fields, I do think, is the more NFL ready guy. San Fran has a roster that's ready now.
I think we lost Gino there for a second.
Hence why they gave up those back. All right, I don't know what that was. My internet's working fine.
No, you're okay. You're good. We got you back.
All right, so we're back. But the thing is, I think Justin Fields is ready to win with that San Francisco roster that on the defense, they have tons of pieces all ready to go. The offense, same thing. They've been loading up Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. Their offensive line is at their prime age. I think Justin Fields could get it done with that roster because of Kyle Shanahan and because of his ability. I mean, that game against Clemson, when is that a negative thing? Like, I don't know why we're not talking about why Justin Fields should be a successful NFL player, because I truly think he is going to be. How he throws the football, how he isn't a first read quarterback, which people said at one time. The guy makes multiple reads. Just turn on the Clemson tape. Don't say a word. Just watch it all the way through, and that's why you make this selection.
It's over evaluation, man, because him and Trevor Lawrence have been
keep it simple, stupid. Remember that old saying, keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah, again, there's just so much time in between the draft and when you start draft coverage, right? We start talking about it during the NFL playoffs, honestly, and even before that, during the college season. And again, Fields and Lawrence have been QB 1 and 2 since high school. And so you can only say the same things about how great they are for so long. Eventually, you have to start nitpicking if you want to continue to talk about them. But again, that means you lose credibility, I think, when you start overanalyzing Justin Fields. And again, this is just the obvious pick. So, Gino, now we do with TDN Premium, we do have the ability to trade here. So whether the Falcons take Trey Lance, whether somebody else moves up, is Lance the pick here, or do the Falcons take a skill position player like Kyle Pitts, Jamar Chase, an offensive lineman like Penei Sewell to build around Matt Ryan? This is really, I think the draft starts at 3 because we really don't know what the Niners are going to do, but that's a quarterback. This is really when we start, like, anything could happen.
Yeah, it truly can. I mean, the thing with Atlanta is you have a new head coach coming into this season. Matt Ryan and Julio Jones are at the tail end of their career. Do you believe you have one last ride with Matt Ryan? That's what you have to look at. And if not, I don't believe you trade out of this spot, because you take whatever quarterback is there that's left if you like that guy enough. And it being a 5 quarterback draft at the top, you have a chance to get Trey Lance. And if you want to run it with Matt Ryan another season, I think Trey Lance is the guy that you bring into Atlanta and let sit for a year. And then if it doesn't work out with Matt Ryan, you move on from his contract, obviously, after this year. Same thing with Julio Jones. Your coach is in his 2nd season with Trey Lance, and now he's the guy to take it forward. I believe if Trey Lance is there, that Atlanta would be smart to take him. Kyle Pitts definitely would, but when you look at longevity, how long is Matt Ryan going to be there with Kyle Pitts until you're in quarterback purgatory? That's the thing I look at. And I think Trey Lance would be a smart pick from Atlanta here. And there's a chance that 4 quarterbacks go in the first 4. And this year, I truly believe that it can happen.
Yep, I think it's a great quarterback class, and that's why I wanted the Eagles to pick one really, really bad. I think this is not the year to pass on one, and the Eagles don't really have a top 10 pick a lot throughout their franchise's history, but they think that Hurts is on an equal level, at least to Fields and Lance. I disagree. But, Gino, real quick on Lance before we get to pick 5 here with Cincinnati, I think it's interesting. I personally believe that Atlanta could be a good spot with Arthur Smith, with Julio Jones, with Calvin Ridley, but I think about sitting versus playing for a rookie. And for Lance, again, everybody says he's so raw and he's barely played, and that's why he needs more development. But for me, I feel like for his development, it almost might be better if he plays his rookie year, because if he doesn't, let's say he's behind Matt Ryan for all 16 games, he would have played 1 game in over 2 years. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, I totally understand that. I don't think he is as raw as everybody's making it out to be. Like, he's played big time
I agree
ball.
with that. Sure, for sure.
I mean, he has all the tools, and if Josh Allen was ready to come in and play at the end of that year, I mean, he could be in that same type of situation. And if Matt Ryan goes, let's say, 3-5 in his first 8 games, there's a chance Trey Lance could take over halfway through the season. So just to say that he's going to sit the whole year, I don't think that with the trends that we have seen at quarterback, especially Tua Tagovailoa last year with the whole Ryan Fitzpatrick situation, I wouldn't count it out at all that Trey Lance could play in that first year, especially if Arthur Smith doesn't think that Matt Ryan is his guy, and clearly he won't be for the future, like for multiple years. And you have to look at it. Trey Lance will be that guy. He's still so young, Lou. That's the thing too. Like, even if he does sit for a year, he still has 19 more years until he becomes 40 years old.
Sure.
So he has tons of time still.
All right. So top 4, all 4 quarterbacks going off the board here. We'll see where we can maybe fit Mac Jones in this top 10 if it does help the Eagles. But at the same time, this is a predictive mock draft. So we'll see if we actually foresee it happening. This is where the draft gets interesting, at least from the Eagles' perspective, because they moved down from 6 with a comfortable feeling that the Bengals were going to take Jamar Chase here. I don't think that, and again, everybody's like, well, Kyle Pitts could be there too. I think for the Eagles, if they knew Jamar Chase would be at 6, they might have turned down that deal with Miami. But that my thing is, I don't think it was Pitts or Chase for the Eagles. I thought the Eagles wanted Chase, but they were willing to move down and collect an extra first-round pick, knowing that Kyle Pitts is a very good chance that he's there at 6. And so with the Bengals, look, I think Penei Sewell makes the most sense to protect Joe Burrow. He just suffered a pretty bad injury last year with that torn ACL, that serious leg injury. But I think it's so enticing for the Bengals. And you see teams, Gino, surrounding their young quarterback with 2, 3 amazing weapons. Everybody in the NFC East right now is doing it outside the Eagles. And so you get Joe Burrow, his old LSU receiver, and Jamar Chase with Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins. I don't know. I think that's too good to pass up. And I'm also going to do this just for the Eagles fans and their comfort right now, because if this doesn't happen and Chase is there at 6, I feel like Philadelphia is going to burn to the ground. So for right now, let's just have Eagles fans relax for at least a couple more weeks before maybe the reality is Chase does fall to 6. But I think Sewell would make most sense, but I think Chase is the pick here.
I do too. And the thing is, they just selected a left tackle within the last 2 years, and
right.
Jonah Williams, who, I mean, outside of his injuries, he's been okay.
And it's a 7-round draft, Gino. It's the first round's not the only place you can find an offensive lineman.
Mm-hmm. And our friends over at Locked On Bengals have gone over that they do have a left tackle. And Jamar Chase would be a great person to bring back with Joe Burrow. I think it's a great pick, Lou. I think it's one of the ones that people just assume it's going to be Penei Sewell. I wouldn't count it out. An offensive-minded head coach in Zach Taylor, he sees and hears what Joe Burrow has to say, turns on the tape. Who's he throwing to? Jamar Chase. I mean, it could be one of those picks. We're talking about Tua being brought back with Devonta Smith and having one of his receivers. Why haven't we been talking about Joe Burrow doing the same thing?
Fair point, Gino. You are up now here at number 6 overall. It used to be the Eagles pick, but they moved down to 12, collect a first-round pick in 2022. And the Miami Dolphins go from 3 to 12, back up to 6 here. Is it for a receiver around Tua, or what could they be doing here at pick 6?
I think Kyle Pitts is the pick. I really do. I think they're infatuated with him. I think when they said they got their guy when they moved back to 6, it just makes too much sense to me. I believe they know that 4 quarterbacks will go in that first 5 round area, or first 5 picks overall, and then potentially that Penei Sewell pick or Jamar Chase, for example, and Kyle Pitts would be that pick, in my opinion. He's just a dominant unicorn. He's going to flourish there with whoever's throwing him the ball, and I'm jealous that he'll be picked at pick 6. But we'll get a good player at 12, no worries.
Devontae Parker, Will Fuller, and Kyle Pitts for Tua Tagovailoa in 2021. He won't really have excuses, Gino, in 2021.
Preston Williams, too. People keep sleeping on him.
Yeah, Preston Williams for sure as well. And if not, the Dolphins got a lot of ammo in 2022, kind of like the Eagles. They've kind of built that optionality. They're giving Tua a chance, much like the Eagles are giving Jalen Hurts a chance, but both teams could go in another direction in a year if those guys are good, not great, or just average. Speaking of
Imagine
average,
if they picked Justin Herbert. Like,
oh my gosh, right?
I have a bunch of Miami Dolphins fans that are my friends in a group chat, and I always bust their chops about it. I'm like, hey, could you imagine Kyle Pitts with Justin Herbert, the offensive rookie of the year, and potential offensive rookie of the year in this upcoming season, and Kyle Pitts? That would be crazy. Speaking
of average quarterbacks, the Detroit Lions are on the board here at 7 with Jared Goff there. Look, Gino, if Mac Jones falls to 3, that's just the Spider-Man gif, literally in like quarterback form with Jared Goff and Mac Jones. If Jones was the pick at 3 and Fields or Lance did fall to pick 7, I could see that being the pick for Detroit. But I think that's a lateral move, just like the Niners taking Mac Jones would be. It's the same thing for the Lions. You have Jared Goff. No Kenny Galladay anymore in Detroit. No Marvin Jones. They signed with the Giants and the Jaguars. I mean, what does Jared Goff have to throw to? I mean, they can't run the ball 40 times with DeAndre Swift. So you look at the board and you look at wide receiver. Jalen Waddle's still there. Devontae Smith. They could use a cornerback. A lot of the guys we want for the Eagles could be the pick here. Patrick Surtain, J.C. Horn, an offensive lineman like Penei Sewell is just really good value for Detroit here. But I think they look, if they want to make Goff relevant at all this year, that is not a quarterback that elevates a receiving core, much like the Eagles had at the end of 2019. So you got to get him some weapons. And I think Jalen Waddle would be the pick here.
I don't mind it. I don't mind that pick at all. That would definitely shock me if it was, but I like the pick. I like the thought process behind it. I like getting him a weapon. They did lose a lot in Kenny Golladay being gone. I mean, I still can't believe he got that much money from the Giants, but he is gone. They do need weapons. Jared Goff needs somebody that could get the ball out quick in space. Waddle makes sense. I could see them going defense and a guy like Micah Parsons, but Jalen Waddle does make a ton of sense for what they have at quarterback.
Carolina is interesting here, Gino. They get Sam Darnold at quarterback, so they're not going to take a quarterback. Offensive line, Penei Sewell is still on the board. They could use a corner. Like if the Eagles want J.C. Horn or Patrick Surtain, they're going to be sweating out these next 4 picks right here. Carolina, Denver, Dallas, and New York. Carolina could take one, but what are you doing here with the Panthers?
So I would propose a trade back for Carolina in this situation because they just gave up some picks to get Sam Darnold. They still have a very young team that still has a lot of holes. I talked about New England being a team that could potentially trade up to get Mac Jones. You had the 15th pick, Lou.
Yep.
Get Carolina some more picks. They'd still get a top 15 pick, and the Patriots get their guy. I think that's a Bill Belichick move all day. If they had to give up another like a 2 and a 4 to get up to that spot, or maybe even a 1.
15 to 8, that's 7 spots?
I could see it being a 2 and a 4, probably. I think that could be reasonable, or even a 1 next year if they think they could do well. But I can see Carolina wanting to move back to accumulate some more picks and still having a top 15 pick. And with all these quarterbacks being here, there's going to be a team that falls in love with one of these guys and wants to get up into the top 10 and take their guy.
Yeah, New England does have 3 fourth-round draft picks this year, a 2 and a 4 to move up 7 spots for your. I mean, and again, Carolina knows you want a quarterback, so there's some leverage right there. All right, let's do it. New England gets into pick number 8. Carolina moves down the board to 15.
Awesome.
Congratulations, the Patriots have accepted the offer. Yes, I have.
Love it.
Does this mean I take Mac Jones and you're taking Carolina at 15?
No,
because I was going to take Mac Jones if he was there, but I mean, either way, it's up to you.
6 or half a dozen. So take Mac Jones and then I'll pick at 15. That's
all right.
Good.
Sounds good. We're going to go Mac Jones with the 8th overall pick. So
a very reasonable scenario that this could happen, that 5 quarterbacks go in the top 10, and that just continues to make the board so much more interesting for Philly at 12.
So sorry, were you going to take Mac Jones there at 8 if you had the pick?
If I got
if you had the Patriots.
Yeah.
Okay, so for the sake of keeping the even odds here.
Okay.
I'll take Denver. Just since you were going to take Mac Jones anyway.
Okay.
Denver. Did you think they would have? I don't think they would have took Mac Jones with the 9th pick.
No.
Considering, that doesn't seem like a Denver Broncos kind of quarterback. They seem stuck still with Drew Lock. There's a lot of teams, that have really good rosters that just seem stuck. Denver, Chicago, Washington in the NFC East is 1-2 with Ryan Fitzpatrick. But there's nobody here to take with Jones going at 8. Penei Sewell is just, I think, too good a value here to pass up. I think they could use a linebacker or a cornerback more. But Sewell, I think, is a top 5 prospect, much like TDN has him ranked here. And so I think the Broncos go for value and protect Drew Lock, considering he's got weapons. So now you need linemen.
Yeah, it's not even just the fact of protecting Drew Lock. It's the fact that you can upgrade the left tackle position where Garrett Bowles hasn't been what you thought he would be for you. And Penei Sewell to last till almost the 10th pick, that would be crazy. And right. I believe that would be a pick any day of the week. Cornerback, they shored it up. They signed 3 guys in free agency. They like what they have there with their rookie class. I can't remember who was their I can't remember what his name was, but they have a good corner group right now. I think that Penei Sewell is the guy there. I like that pick a lot, Lou.
All right, so you have the Dallas Cowboys. So far, so good, though. In this scenario, the Eagles would be guaranteed to get – or no, they would not be guaranteed to get one of the 4 we want. And with the 2 NFC East teams in front, who knows if they'd steal one of these prospects. So, Gino, are the Eagles going to have a chance at Surtain or Devontae Smith? We'll find out. What do the Cowboys do here at 10?
I think the Cowboys are looking for cornerbacks here, unless they get Kyle Pitts, which Jerry Jones has been rumored to be in love with. I think they stick with Alabama corners, much like they got Trevon Diggs last year, pair him up with his buddy Pat Surtain. I think that would be a good pick for them. You have to defend the wide receivers in this division. Good pick for the Cowboys. And I hate to say it, but within the last couple of years, I've been applauding a lot of these NFC East picks that aren't the Philadelphia Eagles.
I was going to say, man, it's Dallas and it's Washington. I mean, not the Giants really, but Washington and Dallas have done some good work in the past couple of draft classes, and I hate to say it as well. So this is when we'd be really sweating it out for Devontae Smith at pick 12. And again, you can go another route as well when you're up at 12 here. Look, the Giants, they signed Kenny Galladay to a huge contract, right? They have Darius Slayton. They have, Darius Slayton, right? Am I saying his name?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and then you've got Sterling Shepard. You've got Evan Ingram, Saquon Barkley. Daniel Jones has weapons now. Look, I think, Gino, a David Gettleman pick would be Micah Parsons or Kwity Paye. That seems like a pick for sure. So you drafted a lineman last year. Rashawn Slater is good value here, but dude, I think Micah Parsons is such a David Gettleman pick. And I wouldn't do this here. I wouldn't. But David Gettleman, this is the kind of picks he makes. And I think edge and linebacker are the biggest needs on defense. Parsons can kind of do it all. I think that's the pick. And I hope it's the pick. Maybe it's a little bit biased here with that selection, but that's just, I'm trying to read the room and see who the Giants general manager is.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense, Lou. I can see that happening all day. I could see it being Devonta Smith to add to what Daniel Jones has.
Right. It could be an abundance of riches like the Cowboys did. So I'm not going to throw that out the window, but But
this does make a lot of sense as being a New York Giants pick. Yeah, I could see that happening any day. Micah Parsons makes sense. I mean, his athleticism will help cover the weapons that Philadelphia has. You need a guy to cover Dallas Goedert, guy that can go out on the tight ends. That's perfect pick for them, and they need speed there in the worst way.
All right, man. You have the Eagles pick at 12. Devontae Smith's on the board. Rashawn Slater. This Eagles team loves taking linemen. J.C. Horn. I'm sorry. They were guaranteed to get one. I completely missed J.C. Horn here available at 12 as well. The Giants could take Horn, but in this scenario, this would be ideal for the Birds. Is it Horn or Smith, and who would it be between those two if you're taking one?
That what makes it tough, man. I mean, you can reason to say that this is such a deep wide receiver class, and you could trade back up into the second part of this draft to get a good cornerback, and you can also say that about the wide receiver position. But, Lou, it would be so against what I have said on this podcast the last 2 years to not select. You have it over there for a reason.
Yeah,
what have I said about the 4 Alabama cornerback or wide receivers that have been drafted in the first round or are going to be expected to in this season and last? What did I say last season? Which one did I like best?
You liked Devontae Smith even when they had Ruggs, Judy, and Waddle.
I said he was the best of the 4. I think he is an outlier when it comes to the whole weight and frame. What he did, 1,800 yards last season, with Mac Jones, like it wasn't like you had Tua there anymore or Jalen Hurts. You did that with Mac Jones, and you put up 1,000 yards the season before. And not only is he just a wide receiver, Lou, he's a special teams ace. He's a gunner. I mean, he does everything for them. You got to take the Slim Reaper, man. It's just a sick nickname. He's a great player. He could play the X for you. He will open up the playbook for you. And I believe that trading back up into the first round to get a cornerback, to get a guy like Greg Newsome or Asante Samuel could happen any day of the week, especially if you get a guy like Devonta Smith up top, because you're not assured to get a guy like Rashad Bateman in this round, Lou. I think you take Devonta Smith when he's there, take the playmaker, take the guy that will help develop your young wide receiver room, your young quarterback, and your young offense moving forward.
Yeah, it really fits. Smith then can be your wide receiver 1. Jalen Reagor fits into the Z there, and you find your slot receiver. Maybe it's Quez Watkins. Hopefully it's not Greg Ward again this year. Maybe you draft another guy or you sign a free agent. But Devontae Smith at pick 12, I love it, Gino. You get a top receiver like you wanted at 6, and you collect an extra first-round pick in 2022. I'd rather have, personally, I know Eagles fans love Jamar Chase. I'd rather have Devontae Smith in a first than Jamar Chase. So if this is the way it plays out, I'm going to be pretty happy.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We keep saying it. They're not just one piece away. There's so many pieces away. And potentially having 3 first-round draft picks is huge, because if you have Jalen Reagor and Devonta Smith or Jalen Reagor and J.C. Horn, for example, you're still going to add 3 first-round picks next year that is going to continue to build up this new core that you need, because the old core, it's aging out, it's old. You need to get younger. You need to get faster. And either one of those guys that you take there at 12 is going to help you on either the offensive side of the ball or the defensive side of the ball, adding athleticism, adding playmaking ability. I mean, just the list of guys that J.C. Horn and Devonta Smith have gone against on either side it's crazy. I mean, either one of those guys, SEC talent, they have it all. They have the athleticism. They're going to make you a better football team. But Devonta Smith, man, he's the guy I've wanted for 2 seasons now. I would have taken him last year at 18, and I'll take him now at 12.
100%. Devonta Smith going to the Eagles at pick 12. So I'm up here with the Chargers at 13. And Gino, look, you got your quarterback now in Justin Herbert. Rashawn Slater just makes way too much sense here value-wise. You get your quarterback a tackle of the future. Slater's, I mean, some people think Slater might go ahead of Penei Sewell in this draft. So to find him at 13 is great value for Los Angeles.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that could happen too. I think there's a very legitimate chance that Rashawn Slater could go first. And if you're a betting man like you and I, that's something you might want to put in at betonline.ag.
Yes, sir.
But this is one thing that you need help for Justin Herbert, whether it's a playmaker, whether if it's an offensive tackle. I think you get one of the two, and you get Slater here to help out your guy.
All right, man, the Minnesota Vikings. If there was a quarterback here, I'd consider taking him over Kirk Cousins, but there is no one available. The Vikings love taking cornerbacks every year. J.C. Horn still on the board. The Draft Network says they could use a safety, an interior offensive lineman, a corner, an edge. What does Mike Zimmer do with this Minnesota team?
I think if you need interior offensive line, which they definitely do, they still have Kirk Cousins there. I think Elijah Vera Tucker out of USC could be a very good pick for them there. He's a guy that could be taken in the middle of the first round, going to be the first guard taken. I think he would be a good pick there for the Minnesota Vikings. Protect your guy in Kirk Cousins, run those inside zones with Delvin Cook, which you love to do. Perfect pick for them there.
I think the Carolina Panthers at this point, look, they could take J.C. Horn, Gino, at 8. And so if you can get him at 15, moving down with the Patriots here as they move up to get Mac Jones, as we did earlier in the mock draft. Look, I'd be comfortable with J.C. Horn at 12 as well, as we talked about. I like Devonta Smith better than Horn at that pick. So I think you made the right call, but I think J.C. Horn, you can make the case, is CB1 over Patrick Surtain. So with Carolina, no Rasul Douglas there anymore. He is a free agent. They brought in AJ Bouye, but at the same time, that's a stopgap, short-term corner. They have Jeremy Chin at safety, your rover. They need a corner of the future now. That defense is a lot of young talent up front, deep at safety. Now you need some cornerback help, and I think J.C. Horn, again, talk about value. That's an incredible pick here for Carolina.
Yeah, they could go offensive tackle or they could go there. I mean, but if a guy like Slater is there, you take them with that 15th pick if they do move back. But they need, much like the Eagles, they're not one guy away either. They need multiple players. Their entire draft last year was on defense, and then they started out with defense again this year.
Right.
They need picks in the worst way, and they need picks on offense too. But corner, they're just as bare as we are here in Philadelphia. But they don't have a Darius Slay there. They need somebody, and I think J.C. Horn would be a great pick for them.
100%. J.C. Horn to the Panthers. Gino, you've got the Arizona Cardinals at pick 16. They could probably use an offensive lineman, but I just don't think Cliff Kingsbury in that air raid offense really prioritizes it that much. So I don't know if they would do that here.
No, I don't think so either, Lou. And I'm looking right now, if I'm this team, I'm looking to trade back as well because they're a team that needs to collect picks for the future too. But just where and who would trade up, that's the thing. Go back to the players available. I mean, a team could love Azeez Ojulari at edge. I mean, a team like Tennessee, they need edge rushers in the worst way. I think Ojulari could definitely be a pick for them. And with Arizona, I'm thinking they need help at like running back. If you could get one of those guys in the later half of this first round, that could be a potential, like getting ETN or
Travis Etienne makes a lot of sense for their offense.
I just think 16 is too rich if you're going to go running back. And they have an older team, and they're going to age out very quick. I mean, you see a lot of these signings that they're making. They're making the run now. They're in Kyler's rookie window. They want to make that run now. But you still need picks moving forward, and they have a pretty complete roster to pick at 16. So I think they have an abundance of riches. I could see a team maybe like Cleveland wanting to trade up and get one of those premier edge rushers, but I think a team like Tennessee at 22, 6 picks isn't too much to move back. I own the 22nd selection too. Let's make that happen, Lou. I think have them move back, have Tennessee move up and take Azeez Ojulari as the first edge taken in this class.
All right, so Tennessee gets pick 16. Tennessee moves up from 22. Arizona moves down to 22. And that'll take what? I mean, that's only 6 spots. Maybe they got 2/3. Maybe they get pick 100.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Yeah, especially for that position to get an edge rusher, for sure.
All right, the Titans are evaluating your offer.
No.
They've denied the trade.
What?
The Titans have denied your trade.
How have okay, so try the 5th round pick.
Okay.
It might be offer acceptance. It's red.
Yeah, it's not looking good for Tennessee.
Why would they not want to do that? Tennessee needs edge players, man.
Mm-hmm. Let's see if we can get. Man, they are not budging. Tennessee does not want to move.
Okay. You know what? Let's try the Jets. They have an abundance of riches too. They can use
move
help
up for
edge.
Or maybe like a Rashad Bateman right here.
Or yes.
16.
You know what, Lou? You want to do that?
Jets let's do that.
Because receiver.
I mean, what are you going to do? Throw to Corey Davis for the entire season, and that's really it. That's all they've got.
Yeah, Denzel Mims too. I mean, Bateman would be a good pick. Very good pick, Lou. I like that idea.
All right, so let's try to make a deal between Arizona and New York. Tennessee's kind of stagnant right there. They're okay at 22. The Jets have a lot of draft picks here to offer. I think let's see if we can offer 86. Man,
it's red.
I want to move down.
Yeah, why do they not want to move down?
Just for the hell of the scenario, let's see if I can throw in some picks and
throw in a.
Or let's see a 3 and a 4. 3 and a 4.
That's so many.
It's a lot of draft picks.
Try unselecting the. I don't think they're going to take it.
Yeah,
I just don't see. I would stay here, but I don't see Arizona taking this pick here. Like that's the thing.
How about for the hypothetical's sake, how about we take Rashad Bateman here for the Cardinals and say it's the Jets?
Yeah,
and then with the Jets,
that's fine.
And,
yeah,
you know what I mean. So we'll take Bateman here.
Copy and paste.
Right, just since the AI is kind of being difficult, we'll put Bateman here because I do think the Jets could offer. You know, going from 23 to 16 to offer a 3 and maybe another pick is pretty realistic. And again, the Jets with Zach Wilson now get him some weapons. Bateman, I think, is worth moving up for. So Carolina moves down, or I should say Arizona moves down to number 23 with that pick. So you will have 23 for Arizona. Okay. I'm up on the clock here for the Raiders. They hate Josh Jacobs, so they're going to take I'm just kidding. They're not going to take Travis Etienne, but look, it's the Raiders. They could do anything here. They could actually use some receiver help, right, to go opposite Henry Ruggs. But, Gino, they lost so many offensive linemen this year. Honestly, they chose to do that, which is I'm not really understanding the logic with the Raiders, but nonetheless they did. So I think Christian Darrisaw, the offensive tackle of Virginia Tech, is the pick here to get Derek Carr some help up front. That was a great offensive line. Not sure what they're doing with the future up front, but they're going to have to continue to address that now in the first round with Darrisaw.
Yeah, definitely. No, I like that pick a lot. They completely overhauled that entire core, so that could be a perfect pick. I mean, they just paid Colton Miller to be their left tackle of the future. You need a right tackle after you traded Trent Brown. Darrisaw could be that guy that you move to right tackle and plays excellent there.
All right, man. You've got Miami's pick again here at 18. You went with Kyle Pitts at pick 6. So they could use still some edge help, running back maybe, linebacker, interior offensive line. What are you thinking here for the Dolphins?
I think that after they traded away Shaq Lawson, that edge is a big need for them. And Azeez Ojulari fits perfect for them. I mean, he can play 3-tech, 5-tech, throw them all over, drop into some spot coverages. He can do basically everything. I think that'd be a good pick. Go offense first, get your guy at 6, get a guy in defense at 18. They're going to be a good team next year.
Speaking of good teams, I really like Washington this year.
I know, man.
They don't have a quarterback, though. So, yeah, and Ryan Fitzpatrick, he tears up the Eagles. He has a history of doing that against us. But at the same time, Washington, their roster, if they had a quarterback, they're a quarterback away from being a title contender. I could see them trying to move up for somebody like Trey Lance. But if they stay here at 19, look, their roster's pretty set. I mean, you've got Terry McLaurin and Curtis Samuel at receiver. You've got Antonio Gibson at running back. Your front 7 looks really, really strong, or at least the defensive line. So you're not going with a guy like Jalen Phillips. You could use offensive line help. You know, Trayvon Morig as well from TCU could make sense. You could use some secondary there. Greg Newsome maybe, or Asante Samuel Jr. I think Tevin Jenkins, though, is a pick here at Oklahoma State and continue to bolster up those lines. So I think Tevin Jenkins is the pick, but I could see them really going anywhere, Gino. They've got a lot of optionality. So they have some needs, but there's no like glaring holes.
Yeah, they're a team like Arizona that's pretty patched up pretty well, I would say. And it's kind of like we were talking about the Eagles a couple years ago, like those luxury picks. They definitely have that luxury pick there at 19. But on the other end of things, Chicago is in no man's land right here.
Right. I would hate to be talking about this is what I'm nervous about with the Eagles, I don't want to become this where your roster just these two teams back to back. You're like, we can win 8 to 10 games each year, but are we going to do more than that? Probably not. Are we going to do less? Probably not. It's just like you said, no man's land, purgatory. That's where this team is at.
Yeah, I don't like being here for Chicago. They could do a lot of different things. They could go wide receiver. They could go cornerback, for example. I mean, they have so many different needs. I think after losing Kyle Fuller, that they have a huge need at cornerback.
Do they afford to wait for Caleb Farley, or is Greg Newsome, does he make more sense here?
I think Caleb Farley, people are going to be scared of with the injury, but it's not as crazy as Sidney Jones. Like,
right,
I don't
it's not
think
a torn Achilles
much. I think Caleb Farley could be a good pick for them. I like that selection, Lou. I think Newsome would be another good pick. He's close to Chicago. Being a Northwestern guy, he's literally in Chicago. So that could be the selection. Caleb Farley, I just think talent-wise, without that injury, he's probably a top 10 selection. So definitely a good pick for Chicago there.
Yeah, I get nervous about it from a perspective of seeing what happened with Sidney Jones in Philadelphia. But like you said, Caleb Farley, I mean, it wasn't Surtain and Horn versus Horn throughout the early part of the draft process, man. It was Patrick Surtain versus Caleb Farley. So yeah, I think it's good value. And like we said, Chicago's got a pretty good roster. They did lose Fuller, so they could use immediate cornerback help, but I think Farley would be worth the wait. So the Eagles and Colts have made a trade already this year for Carson Wentz. Gino, I wonder if this range is where Philadelphia starts to maybe think about getting back in here, right? For a receiver or cornerback. We took receiver at pick 12 with Devontae Smith. The Colts gave the Eagles a first/second round pick, depending what Carson Wentz does this year in 2022. Could you foresee the Colts maybe calling us up again and trying to move down? Again, this is a roster that is kind of ready to go.
Yeah, they did give up that first for next year. I mean, they could potentially want to move down here, but at the same time, they do have some holes. I mean, they could use another cornerback. They could use another wide receiver. I think drafting another wide receiver for Carson Wentz here wouldn't be a crazy idea. I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility. Offensive tackle, they could bolster there as well. But this isn't my pick, Lou. This is on you.
Mm-hmm. Carson Wentz, I want to do good by him, but again, this is predictive. And so, like, for me, I'm like, you've got Michael Pittman, you've got T.Y. Hilton. I would love to give him Kadarius Toney. Just give him what he didn't have in Philadelphia. But I do think it could be realistic because I do think the Colts roster is pretty good. We kind of talked about the Cardinals and some teams that could be looking to move down and collect picks. Again, it's a 7-round draft, so I think the Colts will be okay if they look to move down. I just want to see what it could take if we're the Colts here and we call up Philadelphia, who might want to move up for a corner themselves in Greg Newsome. Mm-hmm. If the Colts are sold on Greg Newsome, they're not going to move down here, but I want to see what it could take because I think a trade like this could be pretty realistic for both sides. Gino, what do you think it would take to get from 21? Obviously, it would definitely take 37, maybe 84 as well. I think that looks pretty good and it's green, so I think it would be worth it. Look, the Eagles have another third. They've got a ton of picks next year. For Greg, if we can come away from day one with Devontae Smith and Greg Newsome, I mean, that's kind of a haul to me.
Do it. You have both picks, 21-37. They're both.
This is a dream scenario for me.
All right, brother.
So we're back on the clock. The Eagles are on at 21. Look, I love Asante Samuel Jr., but I've been watching Greg Newsome the past couple of days, and I think he's the pick here for sure. So we get our receiver and our cornerback opposite Darius Slay.
Yep, totally agree, brother. Love it.
Greg Newsome to the Birds at 21. Devontae Smith to the Birds at 12. What are we doing here now with the Titans at 22, Gino? They wanted to stay, so who do they want?
Yeah, I mean, they must be loving somebody right now. They have tons of needs. They didn't make many great decisions, in my opinion, in free agency. I didn't love a lot of them. I think they could potentially look cornerback here, especially with the run that's happening on them. We always talk about these runs, Lou.
Sure.
Eric Stokes could be a guy. I mean, they're fine with getting smaller corners. They had Malcolm Butler. They had Adoree Jackson. Stokes provides you that athleticism that you wanted at Adoree Jackson, but he actually uses it functionally. And I think Eric Stokes, with this run that is coming, could totally be a pick there for Tennessee, and they could panic and take one of those guys.
Yep, because they would lose, back to back here. Caleb Farley at 20, Greg Newsome at 21. Even if it's not the Eagles, I think the Colts could take Greg Newsome. So I love it for the Birds, but then the Titans take Eric Stokes. All right, so at pick 23, so what do we do here? The Jets went with Rashad Bateman. So this is your pick again with the Cardinals, who decided to move down to 23 from 16 and collect some picks. Is this where they go maybe Travis Etienne and get that running back next to Kyler Murray?
I don't think it's going to be Etienne as much as people do think. I think Javonte Williams is going to be the first one taken.
Wow.
I've heard talks that he's going to be. I like the Javonte Williams pick. I think he would fit into that system fantastically, even if that's a word. I don't know. But Javonte Williams, he's a smooth character, man. He can run the football. He'll fit right in behind that offensive line, especially with the wide receiver game. It's going to open up the field for him. I love that pick for Arizona.
Javonte Williams, the UNC running back to the Arizona Cardinals. And Gino, you're up again here with the Pittsburgh Steelers, who talk about stuck. Big Ben running it back. I know they won 11 games last year, but man, I don't think they're going any farther than the first or second round. So what could they do here? They could use corner, right? Steve Nelson on the block. That could be a move here. The cornerback run is going. Maybe somebody like Asante Samuel Jr. They could use offensive line help. They could use a running back themselves. What are we thinking here with the Steelers?
They have a ton of needs, man, and they're another aging roster. But a team that loves speed at the linebacker position, I could totally see them go with a guy like Jeremiah Owusu-Kamara, the Joker. I could totally see that pick, especially with Devin White coming off some injuries in his career. They're getting older there. They need help at the interior of their offensive line, man. They could use a center. They could use so much. Maybe even a guy like, Zaven Collins. I think they're a team that would be in love with Zaven Collins. Small school guy, not small school, quote unquote, but Tulsa is one of those schools that you're not thinking of all the time with prospects wise in the draft. Zaven Collins, he's a bigger body guy that they definitely could use there. They love athletic linebackers. Zaven would be a great pick for them.
All right, Zaven Collins, the linebacker from Tulsa, going over to the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Jacksonville Jaguars already had them at pick 1. They get their franchise quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. They've got Marvin Jones at receiver now, Laviska Shenault, DJ Chark, James Robinson at running back. It's a pretty good-looking young offense in Jacksonville. They could use probably another offensive lineman, but Gino, that kind of got picked clean now. Landon Dickerson is down there, but they could use tackle help more than the interior. So the guys available left, edge rusher, teams could always use an edge rusher. I think Jalen Phillips would be pretty good value here. Trayvon Morg, the safety out of TCU. They could also use a cornerback to go opposite CJ Henderson. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is a kind of a do-it-all guy, but I think Jalen Phillips at 17 is just really good value. You lost Yannick Ngakoue, right? You have Clavon Chazon, but who knows if he's going to be your edge rusher of the future. So I think you do that again in back-to-back drafts and kind of rebuild that front where you've been picked clean, right? Dante Fowler gone, Ngakoue gone, Calais Campbell, replenish that with young talent. And I think Jalen Phillips is that guy, the edge from Miami.
Yeah, I don't mind that pick at all. I like that selection, especially before Cleveland, a team who could use edge help, but they could also use interior defensive line help.
And there's only really one that makes sense, and it does make sense in this area of the draft.
Christian Barmore, who apparently has been in talks to be a top 15 selection. If he's there at 26, just makes way too much sense for Cleveland to take him here. I think Barmore's the selection all day long.
Christian Barmore from Alabama over to Cleveland for their interior defensive line. Let's go, baby. I get my pick for Lamar Jackson, and I got to get him some help.
You love him.
I do. I love me some Lamar Jackson, and he got Sammy Watkins this offseason. That's not a bad wide receiver 3. You've got your burner and Hollywood Brown. So with Mark Andrews as well, it's not a terrible top 3 when it comes to passing targets.
I think there's one guy here that's like perfect for them, for their style of offense that they need in the worst way.
So again, with what they have stylistically already, you have your field stretcher in Hollywood Brown. You've got Sammy Watkins who can move inside and out, and he's also got speed. I just think right now they could use a bigger receiver that, one-on-one can go up and get the football. Lamar Jackson's never really had that where he can just say, I'm throwing it up to you. Mark Andrews has been that pick for them. So I think when it comes to what the personnel they already have on this offense, I like Kadarius Toney a little bit better than Terrace Marshall Jr. from LSU. I like Elijah Moore a lot as well. I think Terrace Marshall, though, makes the most sense for Baltimore.
Absolutely. When I was in the scouting academy and we had John Peterson was one of the instructors who was one of the scouts for Carolina, and they always said that they had to draft taller wide receivers like Kelvin Benjamin, for example, and Devin Funchess because the ball would always go a little high for him.
Right.
Lamar Jackson, he's not the most accurate guy, but he has the arm strength to put the ball down the field. And especially with a guy like Terrace Marshall who could go up and get it, that makes Hollywood that much more dangerous when you have two guys that you now have to account for. Not to mention they have James Prochet and Devin Duvernay that you have on the inside.
Sure,
that
I didn't even think of that. Yeah,
for a lethal offense match with Mark Andrews on the inside. I think Terrace Marshall is a great selection for them there.
Gino, Terrace Marshall, too, another thing about him, he made some bad quarterbacks at LSU last year look really good when Jamar Chase was gone, and so was Justin Jefferson. PFF, actually, their one stat said Terrace Marshall Jr., when he played on the outside, his quarterbacks had the highest passer rating when targeting him in college football. So Lamar Jackson can use that on the outside, a guy that even if the ball isn't perfect, he can make a tough catch, because as much as I love Hollywood Brown for what he is, that's not that guy. Sammy Watkins isn't that guy anymore. Marshall Jr. would be that guy.
Yeah, I like that pick for Lamar a lot.
All right, what do the Saints do here, man? This is an interesting team. Drew Brees retires their roster. It's kind of like Washington we're talking about, Chicago. They're still going to try to win now. What do? They could use corner, receiver, edge, but those positions, you look at the last 10 picks, 15 picks, they've been picked clean. I'm at receiver, though. Let's see what we got total.
Linebacker's a very good selection for them. I think Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is the pick for them because they lost a lot of linebackers this offseason. Anzalone, Quan Alexander. So, I mean, did they lose Quan Alexander? Am I saying?
Yeah.
He didn't resign.
Nope. They cut him.
Yeah, that's right. Because they needed the cap space. So yeah, right. The Joker, I think he would be a great selection there. They need speed there at the linebacker position, especially when you're going to defend guys like Christian McCaffrey in that conference or in that division rather. You need a guy like the Joker. I think that's a good pick for them there.
I am running to the board if I'm Green Bay. I don't know if they got to finally do this for Rodgers, right? Last year, right? Get him a receiver. Nope, we're going to take Jordan Love. Rodgers like, fine, I'm going to go win MVP anyway. This year, take the damn hint. Get this guy some help. They've got Devontae Adams, right? One of the best, if not the best receiver in football. Of these guys, Terrace Marshall Jr. off the board now between Elijah Moore and Kadarius Toney. Both players, you're going to get the ball in space, manufactured touches, probably will both thrive better in the slot, especially Moore. Moore, I don't think is going to translate really to an outside receiver. Whereas Kadarius Toney, I think, could. They both have a lot of the same similarities with their explosiveness, their ability to separate. I love Kadarius Toney, and I think when you already have somebody like Devontae Adams, that overall complete receiver, I think Toney could be that really fun wide receiver too, that you get the ball in space and kind of get that weapon that Green Bay really doesn't have, that guy that can, with whenever he touches the ball, like he can make a 10-yard, like a 3-yard quick screen pass into a home run touchdown. So I think Toney would be a great pick for Green Bay, and they finally just start building around Rodgers and maximize this window they have with him while they still have him.
Finally start building around Rodgers. That's a funny statement to say, but yeah, no, I think that would be a great pick, a great number 2 for Devontae. Get it out in space quick for him. They really don't have that guy. They have bigger backs and Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon. So
even though the receivers like Marquez Valdes-Scatling's not that guy. Even their personnel receiver doesn't really. So I think Moore and Toney makes sense for them right there at 28 or 29.
Yeah, either way would be a great selection to pair with Aaron Rodgers for sure.
All right, you get the Buffalo Bills. We're both Buffalo natives for Josh Allen. What can they do here?
Whoa, brother.
Sorry. Rochester native. Okay, yeah. a little. Yes, I'm a Buffalo native. Both lived in Buffalo, though, the last 3 years. Yeah, so what could the Bills do? Their roster is pretty set for Josh Allen. This is around the time with these teams, Super Bowl contenders, a lot of optionality here. And we've been used to it. Philadelphia has been picking here for the last couple of years up until this point.
Yeah, potentially could be a trade-out spot here for the Buffalo Bills. There's been talk that you see Jamin Davis from Kentucky, which it doesn't make any sense why he's in the discussion to be a first-rounder, but I love that TDN has him on the predictive board. This is one of those things that I've been saying. When you put the breadcrumbs together, I keep hearing his name, keep seeing his name in these discussions. They could use help at the linebacker position depth-wise with Matt Milano, with Tremaine Edmonds, They could use depth. They could use help in coverage, either at corner or linebacker. But I think if you took a guy like Jamin Davis, it would only fill in the puzzle to what we're hearing in the first round. And it makes sense with the rest of these teams that we have. Maybe Kansas City, but I think Buffalo would be willing to take a chance on a guy like that.
Yeah, look, normally I would think the Bills right now would lean towards cornerback, running back, receiver, but the way even edge, but the way the board has fallen, I mean, I don't love Jason Owe from Penn State. I don't personally like Kwity Paye, and they kind of took a pass rusher with a lower ceiling like AJ Epineza last year in the second round out of Iowa.
That's why I don't see Paye being that guy, because it's like there's their ceilings, like they're both right there.
Yeah, so that doesn't make much sense. And if you're not a running back guy, the Bills could really take anything here. So I don't hate this pick at all. And like you said, Davis, I think Daniel Jeremiah was talking about it the other day, that he's going to go up draft boards, and don't be surprised if he's a first-round pick. And I wouldn't
see it. But
and I know we saw Owusu Karamora as a first-round pick. I wouldn't be surprised if – I don't think Davis is a first-round player, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's the second linebacker off the board.
No, I wouldn't be sure. From what we're hearing, like, you have to pay attention to what, like, these people that are close to the situation, like the NFL, as in Daniel Jeremiah and a lot of these other individuals who know when you hear these names, like we've talked about Tevin Jenkins, for example, Christian Barrymore. Jim Nagy, for example, said Barrymore will be a top 15 pick. He also talked about Jamin Davis. So that's one of those things. It wouldn't be shocking at all. We've seen crazier picks happen. Wouldn't shock me in the slightest.
All right. We saw Patrick Mahomes running for his life in the Super Bowl, Gino. I got to find him an offensive line. And look, receiver could make sense here. Sammy Watkins gone. Mecole Hardman kind of struggling with his overall receiving game last year. Still was insanely good in like manufactured touches and that kind of stuff. But so far, I mean, hasn't really been a great overall receiver. And you have Tyreek Hill. But so Elijah Moore is kind of already what you have with Hardman and with Hill. So, I mean, what are you going to do? Have three of those guys? Rondale Moore is similar too. So if like a Terrace Marshall Jr. was available here, that would make some sense, but you really haven't had that. So I think it's got to be a lineman. I mean, Mahomes is running for his life. And between Samuel Cosme from Texas, you've got Landon Dickerson from Alabama at 32. They could use help just across the board. I'm going to go with Dickerson here. You just it didn't matter how much talent you had on offense, man. It didn't matter how talented Mahomes was. If he's running for his life every play, you have no chance.
Totally agree. And you needed, I think Dylan Radins out of North Dakota State could be in that conversation. But if you have Eichenberg, Dickerson, I mean, Leatherwood is still on the board there too that you could talk about. There's plenty of guys that Kansas City could select there. I think like that second tier, like early day 2, late day 1 of offensive tackles, like that's where it starts to come around again. You only have the two, and then maybe Darisaw if he's a top 15 for you. But then once you get into that second tier, that's where like you get some premier guys that you're going to have good luck taking at 31 and put him into Kansas City's offense. He's going to be reaping all the rewards, being a guy like Landon Dickerson who's played high quality ball at Alabama and then comes into the system where they're just plugging in pieces to keep the system rolling. And Dickerson, I believe, could definitely be a good selection for them there.
Gino, you have the final pick of Mock Draft Monday, a first-round predictive mock draft where we went through all 32 picks, and we end this with Tampa Bay Buccaneers at number 32. They brought back Leonard Fournette. I know running back is there. Their defensive line could use some help inside, maybe an edge, another receiver, right? If Antonio Brown's not coming back. What are we doing here with the Super Bowl champs?
So, yeah, if Antonio Brown isn't going back and Rondale Moore is on the board to pair with Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, I mean, talk about a match made in heaven. At 32 overall, Moore will probably be right in that 30 to 37 range. That's a perfect pick for them. Somebody that runs routes very well, can get open in those areas that Antonio Brown did for them, and let Chris Godwin and Mike Evans go do their thing. I think that's a great selection, especially if you want to run it back with Tom Brady and company, which they are.
All right, so to recap what we did for the Philadelphia Eagles in our 2021 first-round predictive mock draft right here on Mock Draft Monday, Gino had the 12th overall pick between J.C. Horn, the cornerback of South Carolina, and Devontae Smith, the receiver of Alabama. He went with Devontae Smith to go opposite Jalen Reagor. And then I moved back in for the Eagles, going from 37 in the second round, giving up that pick, and their second, third-round pick to get up to number 21 to take cornerback from Northwestern, Greg Newsome. Gino, they need receiver help. They need cornerback help. Howie Roseman has not been able to get these positions right for a decade now. And so, or at least most of the majority of the decade, go back-to-back in the first round. You have still a lot of picks in the next couple of drafts, so you can give up some. You can be aggressive this year and go get two awesome talents. Like, I think this might be the dream scenario for me, is coming away with Devontae Smith and then Newsome or Asante Samuel Jr., and Newsome's the pick here at 21. So I'm happy with what we did for the Eagles today.
Yeah, you have the ammunition. You have 11 picks overall in this class. You have tons of picks next year. I don't think they want to give up a ton of picks because you still have many, many holes that you have to fill. But if you're only giving up a 3 to go up and get Greg Newsome, get 2 top 25 talents in this class, I love it. I think you're going to have to need multiple pieces at both of these positions. So even if you don't take one there at 21, if you move up, they're going to take one at 37. They have 2 picks in 70 and 84 that will also probably be one of those 2 positions as well, if not safety. I'm just excited, man. There's so many possibilities. Like we saw today in this predictive mock, anything can happen. We know it can happen, especially when the draft comes around. Everything that we know, like we think we're lining up dominoes perfectly. Here comes the NFL with that big hand from the end of what is it, Super Smash Brothers? That big hand, and they just smack all the dominoes over and just say, no, you guys know nothing about the NFL. And what you did all those
Cabin Inside the Woods. That had a giant hand as well that came in.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, man, it's we got a couple weeks here, and you never know, and that's why it's fun. This was a predictive mock draft, and we think we have a good idea, but that's why it's fun to see when the real thing happens, because you're always just you're flying by the seat, man. And so we'll see what happens. Thanks everybody for tuning into this live edition of Mock Draft Monday on StreamYard. You can find this live show once a week on Twitter at LockedOnBirds, at DiBiase, LOE, at GC24_football, and on our YouTube page. YouTube, it's Locked On Eagles. You just type it in and our channel will be up there. And then, of course, our podcast is audio as well, 5 days a week on any podcast platform. So for Gino Camilleri, I'm Lou DiBiase signing off. This has been your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast, Locked On Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, thank you for downloading. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And let's go Birds.
Fly, Eagles, fly.